Tired of swiping left on sheeple? Frustrated with dating apps that clearly are government honeypots? Then it's time to find love on Conspiracy Companion. Whether you think the moon landing was fake, birds are government drones, or that the Denver airport is a secret Illuminati headquarters, we'll find somebody who gets you. You can chat securely. Our messages are encrypted, then re-encrypted, then printed out and buried in a remote bunker in the desert just to be safe. You can ditch traditional profile pics. Why risk facial recognition software? Instead, upload a blurry photo of your shadow or just a drawing of yourself. First date options that are vetted for safety. No restaurants, because we know there are too many listening devices. No movie theaters, full of Hollywood brainwashing. And definitely no parks. 5G towers are everywhere. And for a limited time, use promo code POSTMORTEM to unlock a free tinfoil hat, because you can never be too careful. Conspiracy Companion. Find someone who believes in you, and also in chemtrails. Welcome to Movie Postmortem, where we dissect films of all kinds, whether they're good, bad, or those guilty pleasures we just can't quit. I'm Reggie Hill, and I'm joined by my nephew, Isaiah Brown. Together, we're here to examine what worked, what didn't, and why we keep coming back for more. So grab your popcorn because no movie is safe from the scalpel on Movie Postmortem. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Movie Postmortem. Today, we're going to finish our discussion of Moonfall. Again, we did a full plot rundown on this, so if you missed the earlier episode we posted a couple of days ago, you should go listen to that. But just to catch you up on what's happening right now, the moon is falling out of orbit. It is going to crash into Earth, and we have our protagonists, two NASA astronauts and one conspiracy theorist, are now in a space shuttle headed towards the moon to try to prevent this disaster. And so we'll pick up with part two of our discussion on Moonfall right now.
And so we're flying towards the moon, and they're like, okay, KC, what are our calculations? What are we looking like? And he's just like, I don't know, just
Yeah.
freaking out.
Yeah, everything at this point that they kind of really needed him for, it's like everybody's along for the same ride. They're flying through like an asteroid, kind of debris field just to get to the moon so they can try to get to the giant tunnel to get inside the moon. And, here is kind of where they encounter a big problem, that they hadn't kind of anticipated before somehow. And
Yeah,
so kind of how what they have set up is a separate lander, kind of a rover.
yeah, kind of like a rover thing.
Yeah,
And this is
and
like this is like the A plot here. So let's stick on
yeah,
this for a little
yeah,
bit
this is a plot where they have like this rover that they're
with the
going to
MP
use.
with the
Yeah,
EMP inside of it, and they're like, okay, we're gonna launch the rover towards the crater. We're gonna let that thing bite, and then we're gonna blow up the EMP and turn this thing off. So we'll be safe or whatever, right? Because it's established that in this movie that once that little swarm gets away from the moon, then the moon starts to correct itself somehow.
yes, yeah. That's another thing we have to think about scientifically. Apparently, our moon only maintains its orbit because it's actively being kept in orbit by something that we don't know what at this time. It's just part of the megastructure.
well, again, we're getting to that.
Yeah.
And so the swarm shows up, surrounds the rover, and it doesn't bite. It goes instead. It goes after them and the main shuttle. They're just like, what is happening? And then their technology starts glitching, or whatever. And then Brian, without any additional information, he's like, I got it. Turn off everything. Turn off all the electronics. We're gonna smash our phones, smash our devices. And like, what'd you do that for? It's not just electronics. It's living organisms with electronic environments. And we're just like, man, that's some reason right there, Brian. I'm happy that you're right.
Exactly. It's so convoluted, but this is the solution they have. Oh, it only is going to go after, us because it detects biological matter and technology or electronics, which essentially is they say like, oh, that means humans. It's designed to come after humans. So they realize that their trick, to get it to swallow the empty rover with the EMP is not going to work. So they're going to have to actually, take it into the cavern where the swarm retreats in order to figure out how to,
Yeah.
actually eradicate it.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but aside from the finale, I counted 3 different times where they could have just blown up the MP anyway.
Yes, because again, like that's the part that doesn't make sense because the thing does go right up to the EMP, and then they're like, "Oh, well, we're gonna wait for it to get somewhat closer," but like, it doesn't make any sense. And so, like, their whole plot at this point is just driven by what the script requires because, like, yeah, they should have blown it when it was closest. It
Yeah,
makes no sense. But as we will
yeah.
realize later, it wouldn't have worked anyway, apparently. So,
I guess it's what. Okay. Anyway, and so we're gonna try to speed run this because we're almost at an hour right now, which is
yeah,
amazing.
that's how bad this movie is.
And you better not cut out any of this.
I can't think of anything new cut out. It's too good.
Yeah. And so we're flying our shuttle into the moon. We're going into the crater, and it is like Star Wars inside of the moon, with how much technological crap and all this advanced like machinery is like. Oh man, like the aliens that built the moon must have been so advanced. Look at all this stuff, and you see there's like fields with growing that are growing potatoes there, and it's just like, what on earth am I watching?
Yeah, it's an entire advanced civilization structures. There's no actual beings inside, but you see like ships and like automatic sentry guns and like everything just
Yeah,
inside, this the moon and this giant
yeah.
metal mega structure.
And not only that, but you see that what the swarm is actually swallowing and like cutting off the signal from the moon is like built around a white dwarf star.
Yep.
And that's being used to power the moon as a whole. And so wherever the swarm surrounds the white dwarf, that's when the moon's like stabilizers like give up, and that's when it starts crashing into Earth.
Yep.
Again,
A white
science.
dwarf star is at the center of the moon. Won't even get into how that's not possible. That's what the story is about.
Again, I want you to like put our podcast at another tab and just open up Google real quick, and I can guarantee you have done more research than Roman Eller did.
Yeah.
Just Google how much gravity a white dwarf has, and then come back to me.
And so what they realize is that, like you said, the swarm is suppressing the ability of this white dwarf star to keep the moon in orbit. And again, that just sounds ridiculous just saying it. And the swarm starts to attack them. They try to get away, and then all of a sudden, it seems like Brian is doing these incredible invasive, maneuvers to get away, but he's like, wait, I'm not controlling the ship anymore. And it's like they're being drawn, and controlled by something remotely,
Yeah,
and they are brought to a safe point inside the moon behind the giant metal door by some unknown force.
yeah. And so while they're in there, they all pass out for reasons I still don't remember why they passed out. Why they pass out?
Exactly.
Did they crash or something? What happened?
Yeah, it was not really. They kind of slide to a halt and then they kind of black out.
Yeah. Anyway, and so Brian is actually he had to get abducted, and I don't know how else to explain it, but he gets brought into the megastructure's like CPU, and the moon starts talking to him in his mind.
Yes.
So
So
he see at first he sees his young kid when he back 10 years ago, and then he sees his kid when he's an adult. And the moon straight up explains to him what the moon actually is, and that the moon and what the moon's purpose actually is. And so billions of years ago, humans were like super advanced. Like apparently they created an AI that for some reason it just doesn't want to serve humans anymore, and so its solution is just to kill them. Something that we've seen a whole lot before. Knock
yeah,
on wood. We're
yeah.
probably gonna see a whole lot more. And so with all their advanced technologies, they lost to a bunch of nanomachines in swarms.
Yeah.
And so instead of like, and so their solution was to build moons, these megastructures, these moons, pretty much to help seed other parts of the galaxy to where with their DNA, so they'll somehow come back eventually.
Doesn't make any
Really,
sense, but that was their plan.
yeah. And so there's like they not only implanted the moon with their DNA, so where they'll come back later, but they also gave them like plants and stuff like that. So now we know where potatoes came from, I guess.
Yep, I guess. And
And
that's
so apparently the moon, our moon, is the only one that actually made it out. And so it took how many some years, out of billions of years, for the nail machines to find our moon.
Yeah, and that's where again it gets so unnecessarily convoluted because what the moon tells us happened is that, like you said, the moon was the only surviving, interstellar arc that made it out of the initial AI, attack in this war. And then the moon created our solar system because it felt that this was the only place that was viable for life. And then it seeded the Earth after creating the solar system. This is so much stupidity that I was like, why are you making the story so convoluted? Because this is saying the humans involved created an artificial moon, which then created our solar system, seeded DNA, which caused evolution to happen exactly the same way to produce us again. That is just too convoluted for even a story like this. You could take any one of these elements and make it even slightly more just believable, even in a fantastic way. But I was like, okay, so the moon created the solar system? That makes no
It was
sense.
it was
And
so
that's again,
bizarre.
listeners, I am not making this up. That's what happened. They say the moon created our solar system. That's the type of
Yeah.
story we're dealing with.
Like there's literally like a visual of the moon circling a bunch of like space dust, and
Yes,
the and
creating
it
the sun.
compresses, creating the sun, and then the moon creates Earth. It again. Buy this movie right now. Pause this episode. Buy the movie. Watch it, and then come back. We are not making this up.
And so this is all told to him mentally by this construct, and then it gets even more convoluted about like kind of, okay, so what do you want us to do? What do you want him to do? It's like, okay, we'll help you, win finally. And so he kind of comes to, or he hears
Yeah,
all of this
he
stuff
comes
from the
back.
moon. He
And
goes back.
he has like hyper awareness of how everything works now, and so
Yeah.
even when he starts explaining things, Casey's like, "What on earth are you talking about?"
Yeah. He seems crazy to a conspiracy theorist now because he's like, wait, he's like, yeah, KC, you believe that an advanced civilization built the moon. You are right. It was us. It was ancient humans. And KC's like, wow, you're blowing my mind even,
Yeah,
And
and so now now that we know what to do, Brian he's like in touch with the mega structure. He's like he just like wills doors to open, and he just like they open for him. And so anyway, so the moon upgrades their shuttle and their EMP to where they'll be able to take down the in order to take down the nail machines.
But yeah, like I didn't understand.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, so you can make an EMP bomb. It implied two things. Number one, that their EMP wasn't good enough to actually work. So no matter what the humans' plan would have been, it wouldn't have actually mattered. And yeah, why didn't you do this before? It made no sense.
yeah. Why do the moon even need us to be in here? Because what? Oh my goodness! And it gets even dumber the more you think about it. So let's just speed up a little bit. Okay. I think we talked about because we're pretty much at the end of the A plot right now.
Yeah.
We need to go back to the B plot with his son on Earth.
So back to the B plot. It's kind of interesting because it involves the sons of the main character. So Fowler's little kid, son, they're supposed to be driving to the military base where his father is, where all the other military people are. And along with them are Brian's son, the, car thief. And along the way, they encounter Brian's ex-wife's, new family, and they all kind of joined forces in order to kind of get to where they're going because they learned that the military is going to use these nukes in order to, blow up the moon. That's going to be bad. And they want to just drive to the Colorado, mountain bunker, but there is a problem. The moon's, gravity is sucking off the Earth's atmosphere. And so they won't be able to get there without a supply of oxygen. And so this is where Brian's ex-wife, her new husband, the stepdad of his son, he says like, "Oh, I know where I can get, some oxygen tanks." They go to a fire station and they find some. They encounter some people who want to rob them of the oxygen tanks, and they have what I think is the absolute dumbest scene in the entire film. At
Oh
this
yeah,
point, the moon's gravity is tearing up the planet. There are buildings flying everywhere, giant vehicles flying everywhere. And they proceed to have an interaction with these three people who then,
Who,
despite all the disaster going on around them,
yeah, choose to rob them of all people. And not only that, but they show up multiple times during this whole B plot. I'm just like, what do they have that's so
yeah,
valuable?
nothing. And even when the character says like, "Hey, we should stop," he was like, "No, we need those oxygen tanks." Like, wait, no, you don't. This B plot
Yeah,
only serves the point of having another car chase where yeah, everything is being sucked into space behind us. You gotta put the car into 65 miles per
yeah,
hour,
yeah.
outrun it,
He puts the Lexus into sport mode.
Yeah.
He literally says, "Hold on, I'm shifting us into warp speed."
Yeah.
And then they outrace the robbers and also the moon's gravity waves or whatever.
Yeah, this whole B plot is just really terrible. It's so convenient and contrived to where only the, hero's family members are able to outrun all the disaster of mountains collapsing, asteroid strikes and everything
Yeah,
going on.
space debris raining down on Earth all over the place. Just gravity just being loosened, oxygen just going away and coming back whenever it feels like it, which is a thing that can happen in this movie, I guess.
Yeah, and it's so funny. How do I get ahead of us? Because it's unessential. Because they never even make it to the mountains. They don't make it to the military
Yeah,
base. It
they
was because they
barely
were.
make it. They
Yeah.
make it to the entrance. Yeah, by the
It's
time they're there, they already fixed what happened up in there in the moon. So what?
Yeah, it's a completely unnecessary subplot, but we'll get there.
Yeah,
And
and
so,
so they're on their way there, and so this whole thing happens, and we can pretty much speed through this because it means nothing.
yeah,
And so they're on their way there, and like they're using these oxygen tanks because oxygen is just going away because the moon's so close or whatever. Again, take whatever you know about science and throw it away because you don't need it here. And so the dad is telling the little girl is like, just keep going, I'll be right behind you. And he dies because oxygen deprivation. And so she keeps going, and she's like, the family's like, "Where's your dad?" She's like, "He was right behind me." And then the woman takes her mask off, and they're like, "Wait a second, we can breathe again." So I'm just like, "Wait a minute, what?"
we didn't need that that plot point anymore.
so, so not only that, but like, so he died seconds away from just being able to breathe again.
Made no sense, but that's what they needed to happen. I'll talk about why later.
Yeah, and so his son, he goes out there to look for him by himself, and then space debris hits the mountain and like blows him away, and then he's like trapped under debris. And so the woman, what was her name? That she was the exchange student, I think.
Michelle.
Yeah, and so she looks for him too. So it's just a whole circle of people looking for each other. And so he's pinned under like this big debris, and so she's trying to lift it. But while she's trying to lift it, the moon is coming around for another pass directly above them. And so she's like, we're going to use the moon's gravity to help lift this thing. And that works because the gravity's light enough to where she can just lift the thing up and unpin him.
Yep, and then they're going to use the assisted gravity to leap over like the chasm that separates them from the rest of the group, and they leap, and the explosion slash, reduced gravity allow them to make it to safety.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And so while the A plot's happening, they're like minutes away from saving the day. The military is like, okay, it's now or never. We have to blow up the moon now. And again, the fact that we've gone 2 hours and nobody questioned how much of a stupid idea this is
Nope.
is beyond me. But except for the one guy. And the only reason why he doesn't blow up the moon and agree to do it is because his wife is still up there. And that's it.
Yes, and so Fowler's ex-husband, he's been in the military base this whole time. They're literally about to turn the keys to launch all of America's nukes at the moon. He refuses to do it. They have like the, standoff. Everybody's pointing guns at each other. And they're like, why won't you do it? He's like, my ex-wife is up there and she's never let me down. Which again, at this point makes absolutely no sense. They have no reason to think she's even alive. Nothing matters, but they're like, we're not going to do a nuclear strike on the moon.
And again, I cannot ring this bell enough. The entire of America's finest, their best idea was to nuke the moon when it's closest to Earth. I cannot ring this bell enough for how stupid of a plan that is.
And
oh
so,
my god. Okay, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough of the B plot. But
Yeah, at this point
we're
we
we're
cut back to the A plot.
yeah, we're back to the end of the movie, and so Brian's like, okay, an organic life form needs to be with the EMP in order for it to bite it. So he's like, they're arguing about to see like who's worthy of that sacrifice. And Casey just walks back there. It's like, all right, whatever. You're taking too long to decide. I'm going to do this myself anyway.
Yeah,
And
he
so
says his goodbyes.
he says his goodbyes. He
Thanks
says
Brian for
like,
believing in him.
yeah, he says like it's better to ask for forgiveness than for permission. And so just goes back there and then blows himself up, taking out the swarm. The moon's our friend again, and so it starts starts correcting its orbit. But now everyone can see the megastructure. Now that the crust of the moon is gone, now we can see that's a giant machine. And so, how did they get back to Earth? Were they just that close?
Yes, you see it. I actually watched it twice. You see them get pushed out of like one of the tunnels of the moon that happens to be really close to the surface of the Earth. And so it kind of like poops them out and they
Yeah,
just
it's
like
it's
parachute
like a
down.
it's like a blink and you miss it moment.
It really is very fast because like the moon is so close, like it's like orange, red fire everywhere. You see like this little kind of bluish green, like poop, and they come out, and then the parachute, which somehow is fireproof, you know, and again, not affected by the moon's
Yeah,
gravity.
yeah,
It
and
allows them to
and
crash
number two, where did they land? I still don't know where they landed.
somewhere in the mountains, and then they're sitting there, and they're like, "Oh wow, we made it. Everything is
Yeah,
good."
they're all celebrating, and I'm just like, there's no way we're celebrating after all this, right? Even though the moon's going back into orbit, Earth is still fragged, right? Think of how
Somehow
much devastation just happened in the last like few weeks.
somehow a helicopter comes and picks up Fowler and Brian, and then the helicopter drops them off to where their kids are, and everybody hugs, and they're like,
Yeah, everyone's smiling. The moon's our friend again, so yay. But we're not done yet because apparently the moon scanned Casey's consciousness, and so now Casey has become the moon. And I think the last line of the movie is, "We have work to do,"
yes,
heading towards a Moonfall sequel.
which will
And
never happen.
but I pray to whoever's out there that we need a sequel to this. I just want to see how much dumber Roland Emmerich can get. The human race needs a sequel to this movie.
And that is Moonfall. That's the actual plot of what happens in this film.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, pick up your jaws, blink again because we're at the end of the movie now. And again, if you do not believe me, please, this movie is $4 to rent on Amazon right now.
Yeah, it's remarkably bad. I would describe a lot of Roland Emmerich's other films as being, good bad or fun bad watches. This is just so bad. Where again, I don't understand how he fell off in this way. And so, since we finished kind of that plot summary,
I feel like our potential cause of celebration and death were explained just with our hour
oh
synopsis.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and summarize.
Has your life been negatively impacted by the moon's sudden and unexpected hurtle towards Earth? You may be entitled to financial compensation. At Lunar Law Associates, we specialize in moon related injuries, included but not limited to being crushed by lunar debris. Did a rogue moon fragment land on your car, house, or favorite park? You shouldn't have to pay for that. We'll fight for you. Tidal wave damage. If your property was washed away by a moon induced super tsunami, we'll drown the insurance companies in paperwork until they pay up. General inconvenience. Late to work because of low gravity fluctuations? Car trouble due to unexpected lunar magnetism? We'll find a way to sue somebody for that. And for a limited time, use promo code POSTMORTEM for a free legal consultation plus a complimentary survival guide: What to Do When the Moon is Trying to Kill You. Lunar Law Associates. When the moon falls, we rise.
So, since we did a pretty detailed kind of breakdown there, we hit most of our causes of celebration and death, and we can come back and kind of go through any ones we felt we missed. I was just going to list off mine first, and we can talk about them. As I said before, my only cause of celebration was the effects. Some of the space shots were really well done. I liked how the tidal wave scene looked and the space shuttle launch. That was really good. Everything else is a cause of death. Just like I
It's
said, the convoluted writing is just the biggest cause of death. Where
they don't ever really explain anything the way that it needs to be. A big cause of death outside of the terrible science, I think we've covered that well enough, is the unnecessary family drama. We have two broken family stories in this film for no reason. And maybe I'm just cynical. But one thing I picked up on, you have two other men that would be kind of the romantic competition of our main hero, Brian Harper. Both of those men die in this film. And so his wife's new, husband, his name is Tom. He's the one who dies, when he runs out of oxygen. And I was like, oh yeah, that seems to be like, yeah, stepdad died. Halle Berry's husband or ex-husband, he's the military guy. That entire base seemingly gets just knocked out by space debris,
Yeah,
and everybody there dies.
yeah, and yet at the end of the movie, we're still celebrating because we did it.
Yeah.
Everyone on Earth just died.
And for some reason, though, like you have, Fowler and Brian at the end, they're like, yeah, we made it. Yeah, we kind of make a good team. Maybe we should give it another chance. It is, that's the kind of thing that's weird about this film. It's not really like they fully play up a romantic angle between them, but even in the beginning, the
Yeah,
other astronaut is like, you guys are like an old married couple. So this whole movie feels like, in a way, it's setting them up to kind of date and be together
it's
because
weird because for 90% of the movie, they hated each other.
yeah, for no reason. Again, it's not really clear why he hates her so much, and she hates him. But it's like this whole thing was like, okay, great. Your wife's, new husband is dead. Fowler's ex-husband is dead. So yeah, clear path for you, dude. So I was like, why do we have this kind of stupid relationship drama here where the overwhelming message, and you see this in Roland Emmerich's films a lot of the times, it's like, who deserves to die? That, your ex-wife's new husband. He deserves to die. And I feel like,
Oh
I
my
bet if I
god.
read about Roland Emmerich, you could probably find some ex-wives in his background. He wishes their new husbands were dead.
Oh my goodness, yeah, this movie's a trip. It's funny. I feel like we're both. I feel like I'm good cop and you're bad cop, mostly because you're more science orientated.
And
because
another thing about kind of the family drama, it would have cut you off, but the one reason I do believe that the stepfather deserved to die, Tom, when Brian's son is in jail, and then later when they encounter each other, he's understandably upset, and he's like, "Tom, why did you just leave me?" And he was like, "I don't know what you wanted me to do. I did everything I could do. I made a lot of calls." I was like, "You could have gone down to the jail where your son was."
I made a lot
Make
of
it seem
yeah,
like nobody thought, like, let's just go down to the jail and get him. The world is ending. I'm sure he's not actually still locked up there.
yeah. All he did was make a whole bunch of phone calls over the hours.
Won't even get into everything about satellites being out of, orbit or destroyed, everything else like that. Phone seemed to work really well. But it was just like, yeah, the family drama was just so unnecessary. And one thing I just thought this whole time was, why does nobody care about these kids? Like they really didn't care about them at all.
It was unbelievable.
Like, hey kids, just drive to Colorado. Good luck. It was really bizarre just to just let them go fend for themselves. While you're like, okay, I'm gonna go out to space. We're not gonna put you on a plane to Colorado. Everybody else, well, I guess we're gonna drive together. It just made no sense at all. And so that was really the only other kind of cause of death that I had for this film. But just this horribly, just convoluted, unnecessary family drama that again just sent the wrong message to me because I was like, yeah, it's just about kind of hating stepfathers.
Oh goodness! Again, I feel like we're like I said earlier. I feel like you're bad cop and I'm good cop here because this movie, I can't help but love how terrible it is. Like your causes of death, like you saying, like oh the writing is terrible, the movie is incredibly stupid, the science is awful, the family drama is awful. The entire movie is awful, and I can't help but love how bad it is. Like this movie is so terrible that I cannot help but love it.
I don't know what I would suggest you do as a script stitch up for this movie.
Yeah, I feel like we just have to leave it at this because
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do to make this. There's nothing we do to make this 10 out of 10 movie and an 11 out of 10. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, like I feel you just have to start completely over. There is no script change that you can make to this story that would improve it.
There's
You
like there's no script stitch up we can actually give this. How about Vera? Yeah, how about we go over the anatomy real quick? The anatomy here is hire scientists before you make this movie.
Yeah, there's no way they had a scientific consultant. Not one they actually respected. There's no way.
Yeah, just hire a Barry. Yeah, just open Google and do some research for more than an hour.
But that's like you said, it was clear he wanted to make this conspiracy theorist, kind of fantasy film. I would argue the only script change you can make, and again, it's bigger than the script change, make a remake of When Worlds Collide about a giant planet hitting Earth. That actually would make more sense than this. Even again, if you remove everything about the Hollow Earth stuff, it's just a good disaster setup, but clearly he didn't want to do that. That's not a late act reveal. It's from the beginning. Yes, the moon is a mega structure. It's hollow. There are aliens involved. Like it's just that's what he wanted to do. So I
Yeah.
don't know how to
He's
script
like,
stitch this.
he's like, let's take what could be just a generic action disaster movie with the moon falling into Earth, and let's make it a story for the ages by giving it a whole bunch of conspiracy theories, just like all over the place.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's bigger in terms of how outlandish it is than even Independence Day. Independence Day is far more grounded than this film. So it's
Yeah, this movie is like you're just going, and then this happens, and then this. It's so amazing how when you think this movie is just like at the limit for its stupidity, it keeps
yeah, I
going.
mean, I could have used some dinosaurs. I guess if they didn't have any dinosaurs in the film, but
Yeah,
that's funny.
my only stitch up would be like since we're being in this realm of absurdity, make it even more absurd, make it even worse.
Yeah, like I'm shocked they didn't have them like kiss at the end as like an actual official couple. I'm like, yeah, like why don't you go full all out there with the clue that's when we're setting it up? Like just make it go even bigger.
Yeah, just like well, I oh man, I just please rent this movie so we can get this Moonfall sequel. I need to know what because this movie felt like doing drugs.
I feel that just the critical and financial, result of this film, I would hope that Roland Emmerich would never finance another movie like this again. I can't imagine how much he personally lost making this film, but it's shocking that this was actually made. This was the result. Yeah, it would have to be so financed for him ever to have something like this again.
Yeah, I can guarantee you though, like if the odds ever happen and I ever see a Moonfall 2 trailer, I'm stopping everything I'm doing,
Yeah.
texting you and be like, we need to see this now.
I'm there opening day in IMAX.
Yeah,
I think one of
you're just gonna see me with a T-shirt with the moon crashing into Earth.
yeah. Yeah, I would say. Oh, yeah. Another thing I would say, a cause of celebration for this film. I like the actual marketing, at least the marketing that existed out here, because they had billboards that had like space shuttles on them, and on them were like somebody spray painted graffiti like "F the moon" and all this other stuff. And I actually thought it was just graffiti, but that was the billboard campaign because I was like, oh, that's actually in the movie. You see that somehow looters have come up and like spray painted the shuttle and all this kind of stuff. I was like, oh, that was clever. I thought that was just typical like LA graffiti because people tag billboards here all the time for any movie. It's like, oh, it's only gonna be clean for like 2 days, and then somebody's gonna spray paint on it. So
Yeah.
they put more work into that than the actual script.
Oh man. Again, I can't beat this drum enough to where I love this movie. It's because this movie is like so stupid. It's the best conversation starter. We've been recording for an hour and 30 minutes almost.
Yeah.
Even though I thought I've gotten it out of my system, how much even though I thought I got it out of my system with how many stupids there are in this movie, scientifically, plot wise, and everything. I thought I got this out of my system beforehand. And here we are, after an hour and 30 minutes. It's just please watch this movie so we don't sound as crazy. We're telling you pretty much exactly what happened to this movie 1-to-1, and I still feel like we're missing some stuff.
Oh, we're missing a lot because there's just a lot that happens that's even dumber and it's not even worth going into. And that's just the kind of film that, like I said, Roland Emmerich can get away with because usually the effects are good enough to where you're like, wow, it's amazing. I'm seeing a giant tidal wave destroy this city or something like that. I just feel here it doesn't outweigh, the terribleness of the script. But like I said, I can't say that this is a film that I didn't at least like looking at certain aspects of it. It's
Well,
still
I was going to say, after all this, do you feel like it was a boring movie?
no, not even close to being boring. It's just a stupid movie.
Yeah, it was entertaining garbage.
Yeah, and so I would keep my, rating at a 1 out of 5 stars, just because again, the special effects are the only thing that really carry the film. But when they're on screen, they look good. They look really good, and I like that.
Yeah, my personal opinion is that when you're watching Moonfall, you're either gonna have the biggest look of confusion on your face or the biggest grin ever.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't think there's anybody that'd be like, oh yeah, this was a 7 out of 10. I don't think you could be 7 out of 10 about Moonfall.
Yeah, when I gave my 5 out of 10 earlier, that was me being ironic.
Yeah, it's just that kind of film.
Yeah, and so I'm gonna stick with that rating too. Like I said earlier, just 1 out of 10. With generally 1 out of 10, ironically, this is a 5 out of 10 movie.
Yeah. All right, and so that's it for this episode of Movie Postmortem. Don't forget to like and subscribe and give us 5 stars because even bad podcasts deserve a good review. Remember, whether it's good, bad, or just a guilty pleasure, every movie deserves a postmortem. Thanks for listening.
And as always, look out, the moon is rising. We'll see you next time.